Hello everyone, let's get to it. Now if you'll notice we are covering 2 standards in one homework video. That is absolutely insane. We are going to learn about circular flow diagrams and some really old economists. So let's get to it. We have quite a few LEQs in this video, but they are each going to be relatively short. What is a circular flow diagram and what do they show? How do economists use models or graphs or visuals or images to study the real world? Why are there different schools of economic thought? And what individuals have contributed to historical economic thought to society? So here we go. A circular flow diagram. So a circular flow diagram, here's the definition, all right? It is an economic model, aka a picture, a graph, a visual, that pictures income as flowing continuously between businesses and consumers. In other words, it shows the flow of money through an economic system. And more specifically, class, I would encourage you to not write down what I have there because that should say the flow of money through a market system. Circular flow diagrams would not work in a command economy. Circular flow diagrams only show the flow of money in a market system. So it's one of those things that's not going to make sense until we see it. So before you say, whoa, holy crap, wow, this makes no sense, we are going to break this down step by step. I like starting over here at households, and we are going to work counterclockwise. That means moving to the left, all right? So again, all this is doing is showing the flow of resources and money through an economy. That's it. A circular flow diagram shows the flow of resources, think about the factors of production, and money through our market system. So here at households, what do you get out? What does our economic system get out of households? We get labor. We get laborers who can harvest land. We get laborers who can produce capital. And we get some laborers that rise above and become entrepreneurs and start their own businesses. So from households, we get the factors of production. What happens then is they have something called the factor market. You do not need to know this name, but you need to understand the idea. Once we get into the factor market, that is where the factors of production get put into action, if you will. Laborers use capital to mine the ore from the ground. The factor market is where entrepreneurs start to come up with their business idea. So the factor market is where the factors of production get put into action. The factors of production originate over here with households, with you and me, with people, with individuals. The factor market is where those factors of production actually get put into action. And who puts them into action? Businesses put them into action. The businesses purchase our labor for a wage. They purchase capital. They purchase land. And what they do is they sell goods and services. These goods and services go to the product market. Think of like the mall or Amazon, aka the product market, aka where you buy stuff at. And hey, look at where it's back at. Where it all originated from, where all the land, labor, and capital originated from, it's right back there. All right, so let's move in the other direction now. Let's move clockwise now. So again, I'm going to start at households. When you and I go shopping, when we get our nails done, when we buy a vehicle, when we buy a new pair of Jordans, we are consuming goods and services. We are spending money in the product market. We are buying things on Amazon. We are buying things at Walmart. Well, wait. Where did Walmart get that stuff from? Where did Walmart get the shirt you bought from? Where did Foot Locker get the Jordans you bought from? Well, they bought it from other businesses that actually created that stuff. Now, in most cases, this square over here, this is going to say made in China. This is where you get the made in China, made in Mexico. Those businesses purchased the factors of production from this factor market. And finally, the factor market ends up paying wages to you and I in forms of labor. So once again, guys, do not be super confused or intimidated by that diagram. All it does is show the flow of resources and cash through an economic system. And think of a big circle. It's a circular flow diagram. It shows how land, labor, and capital originate in households and ends up in households in the form of a good or service we purchased. It also shows how when you and I buy stuff, the money flows the opposite direction and ends up coming right back to us in the form of income, all right? So if I were you, I would take a screenshot of this image or take notes on it because you will be referencing it again. Let's move on. Here's our next LEQ. Why are there different schools of economic thought? So look, guys, if you're into politics like I am, Everyone's always arguing. Conservative versus liberal, Republican versus Democrats, free market versus command, this and that, raise the minimum wage, we shouldn't have raised the minimum wage, universal health care for everyone, that won't work. Here's the deal. The problem is that different people, for whatever reason, the way they were brought up, what they believe, the way their economics teacher taught them, they have different ideas what the best economic system is. Because in reality, we have no way to compare, because you guys know now that the majority of the world is a mixed economy to varying degrees. Some of us being very market leaning, like America. Some of us being very command leaning, like China, but they are still a mixed economy. The issue is we can't tell. We have never had an unadulterated, pure market economy to see if it works. At the same time, we have never had a reasonable, pure command economy to see how it works. So the issue simply lies in that different people have different political and economic ideologies about what works. Now, there are two key economists that most modern politicians get their ideals from. Depending on which, let's pick on presidents, the presidential candidates, the president, him or herself. There are two economists that most modern economic thought can be derived from. These two guys cause a lot of arguments. Now, they're both brilliant, but they've caused a lot of arguments. Adam Smith and John Maynard Keynes. Adam Smith is the single most important economist of our entire generation, all right? Of the past millennium, I'll say. So Adam Smith was a Scottish philosopher, and as you can see, he's from the 1700s. He was quite old. He's considered the father of free market economics. He did not invent economics. Remember, guys, economics has been around since the caveman days, okay? Economics was around long before Rome, all right? But he's considered the father of free market economics. So here's what I need you to associate with Adam Smith. So Adam Smith, okay, he's a Scottish economist and philosopher. He came up with this idea called laissez-faire. It's not pronounced laissez-faire. It's laissez-faire. It is a French word, and all it means is hands off. Now, when it comes to an economic system, what Adam Smith was trying to suggest is that the government, think about command economy versus free market economy, the government should keep their dirty, greedy, inefficient hands off of the market. So he has an approach to economics called laissez-faire. That means hands off, and he does not favor government intervention. Under Adam Smith, there would be no minimum wage, for example. We're going to talk about that later in this class. The most famous book that I need you to know about him is that he wrote an inquiry to the cause and effect of the wealth of nations, aka the wealth of nations. You're very rarely going to hear anyone reference the title of the full book because it's just a mouthful. Adam Smith wrote The Wealth of Nations. In The Wealth of Nations, he discussed this idea of the invisible hand. Now, the invisible hand is a metaphor, and I trust you all know what a metaphor is. You have been paying attention in your English classes since elementary school. The invisible hand, we are going to discuss more in our unit in supply and demand, okay? But let me give you a general idea of it now. The invisible hand is a metaphor which suggests that individuals acting in their own self-interest ends up benefiting society as a whole. I want to say that again. All right, so those of you that are actually listening, not just taking screenshots, you are going to get this quiz question right. The invisible hand is a metaphor which basically states that individuals acting in their own self-interest, I'm not talking about greed here, I'm just talking about their own self-interest, ends up benefiting society as a whole. The fact that it is my self-interest to be a teacher, not the government telling me to do so, it is, at least I hope that is benefiting society as a whole. And Mitt Romney, whether you like him or hate him, he's a Republican candidate for president several years ago. Here's a quote from him that I really like. The invisible hand of the market always moves faster and better than the heavy hand of the government. That is you and I, when we are basically left alone, that we end up doing the best things possible for determining the prices of goods and services. Again, I'm not going to say too much more about the invisible hand because we're going to learn more about it in supply and demand. Let's move on from there. So this is Adam Smith. He's probably the single most important economist of our time. Now, his rival, if you will, they were not born at the same time, is John Maynard Keynes. He is from the 19th and early 20th century, all right? So I want you to think of them as almost as opposites, but not entirely. If Adam Smith was the father of free market economics, Keynes was one of the fathers of command-based economic systems. First and foremost, when I say command economy, do not think about a dictatorship, all right? Because in theory, you could have a democratically elected president and still have a command economy, okay? So command economy does not mean anything bad like dictatorship. Now, let me say this. If in history, yes, it is a pure coincidence that most command economies have been headed by a dictator or communist. But in theory, they do not have to be. You could have a democratically elected government to be a command economy. So here's what I mean, guys. This guy, John Maynard Keynes, he was influenced by Karl Marx, who is the father of communism. And once again, communism is a form of government. It is not a form of economic system. Let me say that again. This is probably going to be a question you need to know. Communism is a form of government. You are going to learn about it in your government class. It is not an economic system, okay? Now, here's what separates John Maynard Keynes from Adam Smith. Adam Smith was laissez-faire, hands off. The invisible hand will take care of everything. Leave people alone, and in the end, we will make sure that prices are right, prices are fair, wages are correct, we're producing the right amount, supply and demand is in equilibrium. Okay, we'll talk about that later. John Maynard Keynes said, hold up, I disagree. He favors government intervention in the economy to stabilize prices. Because you guys know, oh crap, gas is $4 this week it's $2. Why is this stuff getting so expensive? Oh, things are on sale. Why do things go up and down and up and down and up and down? Well, he favors government intervention to help stabilize prices. Now, because he favors government intervention, that is why he is more of a command-based economist. He's not a communist. He's not a socialist. He is just more of a command-based economist because he favors government intervention. All right? So what I need you to know about him is that to contrast with Adam Smith, he favors some government intervention to help stabilize prices. LEQ in review. A circular flow diagram is simply an economic picture or model that shows income flowing continuously between businesses and consumers. How do economists use models to study the real world? Various models. Now, we've only seen a few. We've seen PPC diagrams, production possibilities curves. We've seen circular flow diagrams, and we're going to see a lot more this semester. But various models can be used as a prediction and forecasting devices. Why are there different schools of economic thought? The easy answer, because people don't always agree on how things are done. Some people think Adam Smith is right. Leave us alone. Let us do our thing. The invisible hand will take care of it all. Some people think that John Maynard Keynes is more correct. Well, come on, slow down, Adam Smith. This invisible hand thing first doesn't exist. It's a metaphor. It's an idea. It assumes way too much. Sometimes the government actually can help point the economy in the right direction. That's why people disagree so much, because of those two ideologies right there. Pure market versus command. So what individuals have contributed historical economic thought to society? We have Adam Smith. What I need you to know about Adam Smith is that he's considered the father of free market economics. He wrote an inquiry to the cause and effect of the wealth of nations. He coined the term laissez-faire, which means hands off, and he came up with the metaphor of the invisible hand. John Maynard Keynes is there to contrast Adam Smith. He actually favored government intervention. When I say his name, I want you to think of a command economy. Thank you, class. I appreciate your time. Have an excellent day.